Welcome to the 7th compilation celebration of episodes 56 to 60. If you enjoy this type of analysis video, please subscribe. And please click on the bell icon so you're notified of the most recent uploads. And it helps my channel out a lot if you'll hit the like button. Thanks for watching. If you want to watch the previous compilation videos, you can go to the playlist and select compilation of past videos. Is this ghost keeping watch? At the end of the pier, we will suddenly see a figure walk from left to right. Is it a ghost? Is it a living human being? I always want footage like this to be real, but I think it might be one of those IR sensor issues where the censored light doesn't reach far enough, and as a result, it's not picking up all the pixels of a living human being. Instead, we have this ghostly figure set in this backdrop of the violent waves that are crashing against the pier. It just adds to the eeriness of this footage. Is this a spectral light? As this camera is pointing into this room, we see a light that appears to be bobbing in front of the camera. Is this a spirit orb? Is it a spectral light? Is it a ghost? Is it a ghost trying to manifest itself? Is it non-paranormal, such as a spider web? If we keep watching this clip, towards the end, we will start seeing the actual string of the webbing. So this tells me that this is a spider web and it's not something paranormal. It just is hitting off the light that the camera is producing and creating that type of reflection. But it's not paranormal. Is this ghost watching them? As we look up the center of the spiral staircase, we see something is leaning out over the railing. Is it paranormal, or is it a hoax? This staircase is in a lighthouse. This figure managed to go up 2 flights of stairs without making any noise. It could be a hoax. It could be post or pre-production trickery, but I think it's real. Is this shadow walking by itself? As the lights are flashing, suddenly a shadow will start coming down the stairs. What is creating this shadow? Where's this shadow coming from? This is definitely creepy, and nothing really moves quite like this shadow. And I definitely give the people who made this video 2 thumbs up for the creepiness. But I think this is some computer graphics CG going on here. They could have also staged it to cause the lights to flicker, but it's not quite adding up to anything natural. One of the problems that is quite often happening in video effects and in computer graphics is the physics, and they're not nailing the physics of how that should walk down the stairs, or even as it's walking on the floor here. It's just off. I think there's a better way of doing that they didn't quite get it on the ground correctly, which caused it to stand out to me as CG. So I'm gonna say this one isn't real, but it's definitely creepy, and I definitely enjoyed the creepiness of it. Is this a manifestation of a ghost? As this camera is pointing towards the window, near the camera lens, we see this ghostly manifestation. Or is it? It just looks like a lens flare to me, so I don't know why they're passing it off as paranormal when it's following the camera, not moving from the camera. Is this a poltergeist? As this security guard gets closer to this door, he can see that it's opening and closing. Who or what is opening and closing that door? He moves closer and closer to the door until he finally gets to the door and he pushes it open. He moves in very quickly, looks behind the door, but he doesn't see anybody or anything. But is that a dark shadow that crosses in front of him? It is not his shadow, and it's moving very quickly. I have mixed feelings on this one. I could see how it could be done in editing, but it might be real. Is this seance attracting the dead? As we watch this seance, suddenly the table starts moving. Is this real, or is it a hoax? We can't see the legs of everybody that's participating. It is a lightweight table that anybody could have kicked and caused it to move. I wasn't there, so I don't know for sure, but I can see how this could be staged. Is this a ghost orb? This appears to be a security camera aimed at a car when suddenly a ghostly figure shows up. Is it a ghost? Is it a ghost orb? Or is it a bug walking across the lens? Well, I just released a video called How They Fake It Using Bugs. You may want to watch that, because that's what I think this is a bug. Is a ghost slamming this door? Suddenly, a door opens and then it slams shut, and it keeps opening and slamming shut. What is causing this? This is an interesting one because he walks up to it and starts to grab it when it first opened, and he's showing us on both sides of this door. And the fact that he actually is kind of investigating things, but it's weird because I don't see a handle on the door, so I don't know if a string is being used to slam it shut like it is. I'm sure it's possible to rig something, but this is just an odd one, and I'm not exactly sure how they did this, if they rigged it or staged it. What do you think on this one? Is it staged and rigged? Is it a hoax? Or is it a pissed off ghost? Is this a ghost sneaking a peek? At the end of the hallway, we can see something look out through a doorway. Is it real? Is it a hoax? Is it living? Is it dead? What's a little more frightening is if this is a home intruder. How dangerous is that? And what is in his hand? Well, the fact that they have a sign on their wall there that says stay a while makes me realize that I will never put anything like that on my wall because I don't want an intruder or a ghost to stay a while. I'm not convinced that this is paranormal. I think this might either be somebody that lives there or a home intruder. If it's a home intruder, I really wish it was paranormal. Is this ghost drunk? As this camera is pointed outside, it appears that there is a ghost staggering in this yard. Is it drunk? Or is that how it died, by getting drunk? Well, it's definitely creepy, but it's a spider web. I know when I debunk these and just say it's a spider web, it gets frustrating, but you can watch the video I just did on how they fake paranormal using bugs, and there's also a clip of a spider web. So it's either moving caused by the spider itself continuing to weave the web, or by a slight breeze. So this one's not paranormal. Sorry, everyone. Is a ghost moving these objects in this kitchen? The cabinet on the right suddenly opens and a dish flies out. Did a ghost open up that cabinet and toss that mug? Is this staged? Are two strings being used by somebody off camera? I'm not convinced this is real. What do you think? Who or what is moving this glass? As we watch these dishes on this table, suddenly one of them starts moving towards the edge of the table. Then it slides off the table and onto the floor, breaking into multiple pieces. So anytime I see objects moving, I'm always assuming it's a string, especially when it's being pulled in the direction of off camera like this clip is doing. So I decided to create two clips for you guys for this clip so that you understand my frustration with this type of videos. So for this first clip, I'm using a string and the camera on a tripod. And I just wrapped the string around a lower cabinet and just pulled it towards the right. And that's all I did with that one. The second one, I took the camera off the tripod. I show you around so you see that there's nobody there. I'm also pulling the glass backwards towards the wall. I wrap the string around that snack bin there and I'm just pulling it towards the snack bin. But I again give you this illusion that it's real because I'm showing you around the kitchen to show you that there's nobody there to be able to pull that, and yet I'm pulling it with a string, and that's why it's moving. Now, I really am a fraud investigator in real life, so I have to keep my anonymity. Okay, so here's my problems with objects moving that are small enough to be pulled by a string. And the reason why I created those videos is to show you that it doesn't really matter what direction the item is going. It just looks like it's being pulled by a string. Now, what would be impressive to me and what I would say would be paranormal is if it just started spinning like this, shot up in the air, came back down, upside down. Then I would say that's potentially paranormal. But everything else can be pulled by a string, so I just am not impressed with any object that's moving to a space that would be off camera, where somebody could very easily be hiding off camera. But even if it's going, like I showed in my clip, towards a wall, it still can be rigged in such a way to be moving away from the camera to a spot where no human being could be. So that's why I did those clips, to show you how easy it is to fake those. The other thing to take into consideration when you see objects that are moving and then stop, moving and then stop, that's because they're adjusting their hands to feed the line. And that's what you'll see. With me, I was purposely doing that, but the other thing I was doing is I just had my hand out like this and then I was pulling back. So it was not that same type of feeding the line. But in that clip that we saw where that mug came flying out of the cabinet, that's just a quick pull that caused that. So that's why I'm trying to show you guys the different type of techniques that they use. And this is what Hollywood uses too, is just a string you can't see. I'm not an engineer. I literally am a fraud investigator and I do interview people, so I do have to keep my anonymity. I apologize for the creepy mask if it's any consolation. That thing stinks to high heaven. But regardless, when I see these type of clips, I'm probably always going to assume they're fake because a string can easily be used to move things like this. And yes, I did create a video about faking paranormal using string. You can go to the playlist that says how they faked it, and that will give you all the ones that I have done so far. Is this ghost smoking? As we watch this security footage, we can see a hazy mass just going through this yard. Is a ghost smoking? Is it about to explode? Is it about to manifest? Did it pass gas? I'm pretty sure this is either a smoke or a fog, most likely smoke. I don't know if this is coming from a chimney and the wind is just blowing the smoke in this direction. I'm not convinced it's paranormal. Is this a shadow person? So as this guy is filming, he thinks he sees something behind himself. When the footage is zoomed in, we start to see a dark figure walking behind him towards that tree. So I made the footage a little bit brighter so we can see that dark figure better. I don't see any sharp edges. I don't think this is a camera glitch, but I can't help but think it might be some type of editing trick, video effect trick. I'm not 100% convinced it's real. What do you think on this one? Is it a video effect? Is it real? What are these eyes in the darkness? As the flashlight is focused around this room, we can suddenly see eyes peeking around that wall. What was that? Now he's heading towards a door that's moving apparently on its own. What is moving it? He opens it slowly and then he goes inside. What will he find? Will he find the eyes again? There they are. When he pans back to the right, we'll see the eyes again, but they'll disappear when the flashlight hits them. And this appears to be some sort of a bamboo door, and it's on the other side. Well, we really can't get a good idea of what this is, even with zooming it in and slowing it down. I even tried to brighten the footage, and we still can't determine what that single glowing light is. This could be staged, or it could be real. Not sure. Is this a ghost riding with these ladies? These ladies just got onto a roller coaster, and we can clearly see 3 people. Is there a 4th? Is this skeletal face riding with him? Was that a camera glitch? I notice with each pole the camera passes by, it's distorting the image of the pole. So I have a feeling that that is just a distortion caused by the camera. What is this flying object? As the camera is pointed towards the sky, it captures a ring-shaped light. What is this? How far away is it? Where was it? I'm not convinced this is in the sky, simply because I don't see any stars. It's just completely dark. No ambient light from cities, no moonlight. Is this just a light being pointed at a black sheet or screen or fabric? Is this being filmed through a telescope? Is it an editing effect? CG or video effect? I don't know on this one. Is this woman possessed? As we watch this woman, it looks like she gave her arm to somebody to lead them or have them lead her. This is being passed off as a possession, but there are several different types of mental illness that can cause delusions and hallucinations. So before I would jump to the conclusion of possession, I would want a medical exam. Is this a shadow person? As the camera pans to the right, it appears a shadow person crosses from right to left. It is described as being 7 feet tall and wearing a dark robe. What is it? Well, we can definitely see that there's something there, but it is so indistinct that it's very difficult to see the full image. It's possible that it's real, but even with zooming in and changing the color and enhancing the video, it's really not helping us see the full image of whatever that is. So unfortunately, this one may be real, but I can't tell. Is this an apparition? At the end of this corridor, we see something or someone. Is it a ghost or is it living? It's a solid mass and it's not transparent. I don't think it's a video effect. It could be one of the tour guides in costume, but I'm not convinced it's paranormal. Is this a spirit orb? As we see this camera pointing out into the yard, suddenly at the bottom of the screen a dark shape shows up, and it just continues to float up towards the sky before it turns from dark to white, and then it comes back down and hangs out at the top of the trees. Is this a spirit orb? Is this trapped energy? Is this a friggin' bug that's being passed off as paranormal? This clip is not from YouTube. This clip is from a TV show, or rather a documentary. Were they so cheap that all they did was hire interns that can't recognize a bug? Ugh. Is this a cryptid in this desert? In the distance, we can see something walking on two legs. As we zoom in, it doesn't appear to be human. Is this an unknown species? Is this a human being wearing a costume? This is not in the middle of nowhere. There are a couple of factory silos in the area, as well as you can see the electrical line. It appears to be on a road. Granted, it's a dirt road, but that's common in the desert. Oftentimes in the desert, you can see the heat waves if it's really hot. I don't see any heat waves in this footage, so it is possible that it's cool enough to be wearing a costume, and this may be just a human being. Is this a forest cryptid? Walking between these trees, we see a humanoid figure. Is it an unknown humanoid? Or is it a human in a costume? The pelvic region looks very thin and narrow for it to be human. Obviously, the arms are longer than an atypical human, but that's easy to fake. This would have to be a very skinny person in a costume to pull this off based on the hips there. So I'm not convinced it's a cryptid. It's most likely a human being in a suit, but it is an interesting one. What do you think? Is it real or fake? Is this an alien? As the camera pans around the cemetery, it looks like the camera caught an alien creature. What is that thing? Is this some type of a costume? Did someone intentionally blend that costume in with the tombstone it's standing by? Is it an alien? Is it a cryptid? Is it freaky? Is it a puppet? What is this bug-like cryptid? The camera zooms in on the wings of this bug, but when it pushes away from the tree, it looks like it's human. Is this simply CG? A prank? A hoax? Most likely. Is this a poltergeist in this kitchen? As these paranormal investigators are exploring this house, they start to see activity in the kitchen. The chairs have been stacked up on the table, and the pots are swinging on their hooks. Is it possible somebody's walking upstairs above those pots, and that's what's causing them to swing? Is it possible that a string is being used to make those pots swing? But neither of those explains the chairs on the table. I've seen a lot of videos with chair stacking, and frankly, I don't fully understand it. I don't know why, but I'm always skeptical of stacked chairs. Maybe because I know that chairs are not light, and they also will make noise when you start stacking them. So how does something that doesn't consume 1,500 calories a day lift these chairs up, stack them, and is 100% quiet? I've heard experts in the field say, well, when you see something like that, that is a very powerful entity. But what is their fuel source? What are they consuming to produce that much energy to have that much power? So this is what the kitchen looked like prior to the chairs being stacked on the table. So I'm always skeptical when I see this much activity and this much movement. Is this a ghost sitting down? Just above this man's right shoulder, we'll see the seat lower. Is that a ghost sitting down? There is a second camera and a second angle, so we have a wider view in this second shot. The man's left hand is holding the camera. His right hand does not appear to be moving to pull a string. It's also very hard to act out some of those quick reflexes that occurred in that initial jolt of shock of hearing something behind him. What is suspicious to me is the camera angle for both cameras. He didn't make the chair that moves perfectly centered up, so maybe it's just a lucky shot. And he really did capture paranormal activity. Is this a ghost peeking through this window? As the camera points at this dining room table, we see someone peeking through the window of the door. Who is that? What is that? The lower right-hand corner of the door window appears to show a face. Is it living or dead? If it's an ex-lover, a neighbor, a stranger, it's creepy and call 911. If it's a ghost, it seems pretty solid to me. But how would I fake it? Well, I would put my camera on a tripod and I would put my mask on and I would step outside since I have a very similar door to what he has, and I would just peek in the window, just like this. And of course, when I brought it back into editing, I would change it to black and white film. I would reduce the visibility as much as possible so that you would have a very creepy video. And for the most part, this is the unedited edition without turning it to black and white and reducing the visibility. So did he fake it, catch it, or what? Is this creepy doll possessed? As we watch this doll sitting in this chair, we start to see its arms moving up and down. So did somebody just raise its arms and let gravity do the work of lowering it? Then did they reverse the footage so it looks like the arms are going up instead of down? I may have to buy a doll just to see if I can figure out ways of faking the movement of dolls. So it's sitting in a chair, not in a cradle or anything of that nature. Are strings being used? Or a remote control device? Or is this doll possessed? What do you think on this one? Is this ghost moonwalking? I'm sorry, I can't. This is not a ghost moonwalking. Ugh. OMG, people, it's a spider on a spider web. Sorry, I can't even pretend like that's a ghost. If you don't believe me, go see this video called Baking Paranormal Using Bugs. I don't even understand why so much as one person would pass this off as paranormal. I wish I could track down on some of these videos the original person who uploaded these videos. I upload bug videos on my nature security camera channel, but I always label them as a bug. Next. Is this a forest cryptid? This camera is bounced around and then suddenly zooms in and focuses on a black spot hidden by a tree. Is it a cryptid? Is it a person in a costume? Is it a person that can't operate a camera? Are we going to get motion sick? Is it just a black bear that's peeking around the tree because it's curious? Black bears are notorious for being tree climbers. Is the camera angle just an odd angle that doesn't show its ears? Is this some other body part of a bear? Or of a different animal? Is it a sloth? Is it a large bird? Is it CG or video effect? Or is it an unknown species? Is this creepy shadow paranormal? On the left side of our screen, in front of the doors, a dark shadow will start to manifest and move towards the top of the screen. What is that? Is it a ghost? Well, the man didn't notice it. At first glance, when I first saw this footage, I thought, oh, that's good footage. But then I realized it's a bug on the lens. Brum, brum, brum. I do see how some bug clips can fool people, but the mere fact that it looks like it's walking like a bug clues me in that it's a bug. Me sad, 'cause it wasn't real. Did a ghost move this shower curtain? Suddenly, the shower curtain moves. This is paranormal investigators exploring this house, or obviously the paranormal. When the investigator walks into this bathroom, that shower curtain suddenly goes from billowing out to back to normal. Could a string have been used? Yes. Was a string used? I don't know. The investigator backed out of the bathroom and turned away before going in to investigate to see if there was anybody in the shower. So I don't know if this was real or a hoax, simply because the investigator didn't investigate immediately, which could have given someone time to hide outside of the frame of the camera. Is this a ghostly peeper? As the cameras move towards the door, suddenly the camera operator realizes it appears there's a face looking back at them. Something in the window on the right moves towards the left and can be seen as a face peeking out of the left side window as well as the right side window at the same time. When I first looked at this clip, I thought it was a dark-haired person in the left window that we were looking at, and I was like, that's probably just a person. But when I slowed it down and looked more closely and saw the movement in the right window and then the manifestation of a head-shaped thing in the left window, that actually startled me. So obviously I can't tell by how bad this footage is what exactly that is, and I've already showed you how I would fake this. Weird Dude is back. If you watched episode 13, I had this exact same figure in that video with different people, and I just labeled him Weird Dude. So if you upload any videos with a guy that looks like that, I'm just going to assume you're making a paranormal video. You're not actually capturing paranormal. Is it creepy? Would I run? Absolutely. But I wouldn't run because I thought it was paranormal. I would just run because I would think it was somebody that escaped from an insane asylum. My only question would be, are the people who are operating the camera in on it? Or did they stumble upon this person? Is this a UFO? This footage is from a time-lapse camera. I don't know that much about how these cameras work, but I feel like this is some type of a camera glitch or a bug that caused the camera to glitch, but I'm not sure what these lights are in these pictures. I do find these images intriguing, but I'm not convinced it is paranormal or a UFO. What are your thoughts? Is this a ghost orb? I know these videos should not make me mad, but they do. If you see any videos like this on any channel, will you please scream in their comment section that that's a bug? Please just accuse them of fraud if they're trying to pass off bugs as paranormal. There are so many unknowns about the paranormal, but bugs are not unknown. I really don't want to analyze these type of videos, but I know there's at least one person who believes this might be real paranormal. So I have to make sure to point out to them, no, this is a bug, and I just made a video regarding faking paranormal using bugs. I can't even try to make this creepy for you. Maybe because I'm afraid of bugs, I really don't like these type of video clips. But this is also why this channel exists, is because people are passing this type of crap off as paranormal. Is this a demon? As they turn the corner, they see in this doorway something that looks like a demon. I think they're just making a horror movie. I don't think they're actually trying to pose as, oh my gosh, this is demonic. It just looks like a human being wearing a mask. Is this shadow pushy? After this woman goes to leave, she's pushed by a dark shadow. Is there not a way for her to dry her hands? All she can do is wash them? Sorry, I got distracted. So we can see a very faint dark shadow behind her. But is this footage real? Why is this so-called security camera so low? Is there a restroom? If there is, why is there a camera in it? I don't know about this one. It seems to be that it might be a hoax or staged, some type of a movie, but it could be real. Is this light on Mars proof of Martians? When the rovers touched down on Mars, they took many pictures throughout the area, but in these one sets of picture, they captured what appears to be a light of some sort. Is it just some sort of reflection off of some type of mineral that's reflective? Is it some sort of earth junk that just ended up on Mars? A broken satellite? Some other type of space objects that Earthlings have made? Or is this proof of Martians? Well, if the experts who are into all of this stuff don't know, then I would have no clue. What are your thoughts on this light on Mars? Is this theater haunted? As he walks towards these doors, they suddenly open on their own, and there's a costume inside that room. Did a ghost open up these doors? Or was a string used? And that costume was very creepy. So he goes back down the corridor to try and see what is going on and what caused these doors to move on their own. He focuses on the door on the left to see what's in here. As he does, things start to move again. This time, as he's looking in that room on the left, the door closes him in. It takes him a minute of fumbling and stumbling to finally make his way back to the door and out of that room. But as he exits, the door on the right swings open. There is so much happening that I wanted to slow this down. So we see the door closing on him and revealing that spooky costume. He comes running out of that room in a sheer panic, but still able to control his camera. And then he barely gets past that space when this door opens up on the right. You know, my rule of thumb is if there's too much activity, it's probably not paranormal. I gave him the benefit of the doubt earlier when he was in the theater and the chair moved, but this is just way too much activity, and I'm not convinced it's not staged, especially with this spooky costume. Is this reflection rebelling? As this person sits on the floor in the center of our camera, we start to notice the reflection sitting directly behind her on the left is starting to move differently. But is that a real reflection or mirror? This is definitely creepy, and I could see how they could recreate it using just a plain bit of glass and trying to pose it in a way where it's reflection. But there's also a way with cameras to recreate that type of scene in which they combine two different sets of footage together to create this type of image. Is this a poltergeist? As we look down this hallway, all of a sudden the ceiling light will start to swing. This specific creator is like the boy that cried wolf to me. Even if he caught something that was really good paranormal and truthful, I would assume he faked it. Ever since I realized that he was going to use a rocket to levitate a teddy bear and pass that off as paranormal, I have not been a fan of this guy's work. So maybe it's real, but I think it's fake. Is this ghost a klutz? As we watch this security footage of this grocery store, we start seeing things falling off the shelves, seemingly by themselves. Did an earthquake just hit the place? Were they placed on the shelves poorly? Is this one of those camera glitches where it's not picking up the moving person? Or did a strain cause this destruction? I'm not convinced it's paranormal. What do you think? Staged? Pranked to mess with the other employees? I only see one person that comes into the view, and that's at the top right. So is this at night and they're stocking shelves and they decide to pull this prank? Is there somebody hiding on one side or the other of the aisle and either pushing them off the shelf or pulling them off with a string? Not sure on this one. What is invading this bedroom? For whatever reason, the person stays sitting on the bed with the camera rolling. So I don't have any background on this clip to know why he's got his camera on and pointing at the door. So the individual continues to sit on their bed when all of a sudden the door burst open. But nobody's there. If I hear a noise coming from my house, I'm grabbing a weapon and hiding behind the door. Not sitting on the bed. Okay, I'm laughing at myself because I knew it was there because I've actually seen the clip. But for whatever reason, that whole bed, and I have no clue what that thing is other than I think it's a human being in a costume, but it's definitely creepy. I am going to point out that had I hid behind the door with a weapon, I could have bonked it in the back of the head. So the rule of thumb, people, is you hear something breaking into your house, hide behind the door with some type of blunt object to hit it over the head with. I think this is CG footage just because of how soft the edges are, and then it was implanted into this footage. But definitely thumbs up for creepiness. Did they capture a thermal hit of a ghost? Living human beings will always be multicolored on a thermal, and typically the pelvic region is always the hottest region on a thermal for both male and females. But to the left of that living human being, we see a dark, cold, very cold blob walking away from them. Is that real paranormal or a hoax? Mythbusters tested a bunch of different ways to try and fool a thermal camera, but they were looking to try and become completely invisible to it. They did figure out ways to kind of camouflage the body by making it colder. Is that what this TV show did? Or did they do something in post-production? It's possible this is real. This is another one of those characters where they're the boy that cried wolf. So I'm not positive if this is real or not. Is this a ghost visiting this child? So as this nanny cam is watching this toddler, it appears a spirit walks by. Is this a ghost? Is it a camera glitch? Is this one of those static cameras that is data moshing, where it just did not pick up that person that was walking by the crib? Yes, I think I'm going to label this a camera glitch and not paranormal. Is this a water monster? So the channel that I got this from is actually pointing to this one area here and claiming that there's a monster in this hurricane. And you'll see them point an arrow here to point out that monster. So obviously the person that believes this is a monster doesn't understand how hurricanes actually work. When hurricanes are blowing inland, the winds have a tendency of turning into tornadoes. Now, I can't tell if that monster is over land or over water. If it's over water, it's called a waterspout. If it's over land, it's a tornado. And you'll actually see some debris get picked up just like it would in a tornado and fly around and circle around just like it does in a tornado. When Hurricane Katrina hit Mississippi and then caused the levee to break in New Orleans, it's my understanding that the hurricane turned into over 100 tornadoes that ripped through the entire state of Mississippi. Most people only pay attention to the damage that happened to New Orleans, but The damage in Mississippi was far greater, but it's not as popular of a state. In fact, it's one of the poorest states in the Union. So instead of associating Hurricane Katrina with New Orleans, please change your mindset to recognize that it was the state of Mississippi that was hit, and that state was shredded by tornadoes caused by the hurricane. And yes, feel free to call a tornado a monster if you want to. Even a waterspout, call it a monster if you want to, because both can be very destructive. Are these ghosts? At the bottom left of our screen, we suddenly see what looks like Casper the Ghost. This is footage from the 2011 Japanese tsunami. The tsunami pushed the Pacific Ocean up through a river and canal deeper inland. And my understanding is this footage is several miles from the coast. The person who is taking this footage has fled from that river and is standing on a balcony of the fourth floor of this building. At this point, he is concerned that the building he is standing on is going to collapse. From the time of the footage that we were looking at to this scene here, it's only been a few minutes for the tsunami waters to get this high. 28,000 people are dead or are still missing where they did not find the bodies. So for anyone to use this footage and claim that it's proof of the paranormal is just wrong. The Pacific Ocean is one of the coldest oceans on the planet. As it started flooding all of these residential and businesses, it was getting underground to underground utilities. And it was flooding those utilities. This so-called ghost is most likely either the cold water hitting a boiler that's underground or a gas line, and we're looking at an air pocket, a steam pocket, or a fume pocket. You will actually see these in a lot of the different footage from the tsunami. This is not proof of the paranormal. It is proof of the strength of a tsunami. I'm sure there is paranormal activity happening in this area, and this was just the beginning of the nightmare. As you can see by the night sky, a fire had broken out in that city, and those are literally human beings on top of that building. They had nowhere to go because of the water. And this was the destruction of just one city. The Marfa Lights of Texas. What are they? In the city of Marfa, Texas, there are these unusual lights that are a mystery to this day. They are not there all the time, or even there every night. Scientists and researchers have tried to figure out what's going on, and they have yet to figure it out. Most of the lights that the people actually catch are not Marfa lights. They're actually headlights from vehicles and taillights from vehicles. There are several cities in Texas that have some of the flattest land. In clear air and on flat land, it is very easy to see 20 miles away. And because light travels faster than sound, you'll be able to see headlights and taillights if you go to Marfa, Texas. And you can mistake those as the Marfa lights, but those are not the Marfa lights. The Marfa lights are actually surrounded by a radio tower and Highway 67 to the east and a ranch road towards the west. So it's best to go earlier in the day so you can identify the traffic on 67 and identify that ranch road, as well as the radio tower. Once you orient yourself to all those variables, and then look only for the areas where lights should not be, that's when you'll find the Marfa lights. Some people think the Marfa lights are aliens. Others think it's geologic associated with minerals that are in the ground there. Some scientists believe it's plasma caused by seismic activity. Well, there's a bunch of cattle on that land. It could just be cows farting, because farts are combustible. And considering how low to the ground these lights are, it's very possible it's coming from a cow's hind end. The first known documented sighting was by a rancher in 1853. This is prior to any electricity being in Marfa, Texas. Problem is, scientists can't get close enough to the Marfa lights to do a really thorough investigation and research to find out what they are. So they remain a mystery. Is this an alien from outer space? This image is from a trail camera that typically hunters use. In the distance, we can see what appears to be two headlights or two spaceship lights. It does cause the deer to stop and look up, but apparently the deers don't leave the area. So this did not cause the deer to run away. But what is causing those lights? This is one of the reasons why I don't like to analyze pictures. I don't know if this image is photoshopped in. It gives every appearance of just being headlights, except for the fact that it seems to be pretty high up in the trees. I don't think it's a camera glitch, but it could be faked. If you blink, you'll miss this one. As they're exploring this amusement park, it runs across these different statues that are in various stages of disrepair. Then it runs into this female statue, and her lid's lower. Is she possessed? One of the things I noticed when I slowed it down is that we're not seeing the lid actually close. It goes from seeing the eyes to not seeing the eyes. And when I freeze frame, you can see they blotted out the eyes. So this one's a simple editing trick I'll show you with using my own cat's eyes. See that? Just wipe it out. Do you see the rectangular patches over the eyes? Looks like they tried to blend the color through color matching. It's cool and creepy, but unfortunately, it's not real. Is this a ghost? On the other side of the road, we see a figure running. Is that a ghost? Or is this a person being chased by a ghost? This looks like another one of those camera glitches where the IR sensor and the light from the camera doesn't reach far enough to capture the full image. And because it's not capturing the full image, it's not capturing the full motion but blurring the motion. Or maybe some other type of camera glitch. Is this a shadow person? As this person sleeps, on the wall above the bed, it appears a shadow person is hovering over him. What is this thing? I've tried multiple settings to try and make that image stand out better, but it doesn't matter what setting I put it on, it's very hard to see what's on that wall above the bed. But it looks to me like just a shadow of a hand that's formed into a C. Thumb here, fingers here, palm here. Did I pass the ink blot test? So what do you see? Is it simply a shadow or a shadow person? Is this a UFO? In the night sky above this power plant, we see a squiggly cloudy light. What is this? Is it an alien invasion? Is it a UFO? Well, we have to take into consideration that power plants emit major toxins and clouds, as you can see in this picture here. Initially, I was thinking, well, maybe the smoke from this power plant is clashing with the atmosphere and creating that lightning burst. And maybe it was causing an intracloud flash, just like this picture. But then I realized it's moving behind that smoke. The image is not changing, however, the light flashes are changing. Is it possible that it is not moving, but maybe the source that's taking the image is moving and we have an optical illusion? Is it the night lights from a city or a town in the distance and this is creating an optical illusion? I'm not sure on this one. What do you guys think? Is this a UFO or a bokeh? This next clip is taken with a night vision camera. And through the lens, they see this triangular shaped thing in the sky. What is this? We do see a brighter speck that's flashing. That's most likely a plane. That's not what we're looking for. But then towards the middle of our screen, we start seeing this faint triangular shape that just starts flying. What is this speck that is moving apparently faster than the plane? Is it a UFO? Is it one of these two types of stealth planes? Or is it a camera glitch caused by the shutter? Does the camera have a cheap shutter where it only has 3 shutters, like this type of shutter that causes a triangular effect? Is the shutter itself interfering with capturing the image of the plane and turning it into what is called a bokeh? And this is just a failure or the cheapness of the shutter that creates this image instead of a plain image. And I don't know if when the military is flying in stealth mode, if they have to have all their lights bright and highly visible or not. So it's possible we're just looking at a stealth plane in stealth mode that's being obscured and distorted by a camera bokeh. This is definitely a creepy, squeaky hinge. So as this investigator is exploring, this door keeps moving slightly, and as it moves, it makes a very distinctive squeaking sound. What is moving this door? Well, it definitely wins the creepiest door effect. And I can't tell if that door is going to an outside area or just out to an area that has a staircase that goes downstairs, so I'm not sure where this door is located to explain why it might be moving, because obviously if it was an outdoor or if there's windows nearby, the wind could blow it shut. Obviously, a string could be used to pull the door shut. A vacuum of another door being shut could cause this. But I really don't have an answer on this one. But the door noise is definitely creepy. Is this statue possessed? As we look into this glass case, we start to see the dark, tall statue rotating. And this is a time-lapse camera that is capturing the statue just completely turn around. It appears it's completely in glass and should not be able to do that. It does not look like it's on one of those jewelry display rotators. And if it was something like the environment, such as an earthquake or just vibration from the street or vibration from the people, I would think all of the statues would move, not just the one. I can't really see that there's any type of device that's rigged to it that would cause it to turn automatically. A string could be used, but again, it's back behind glass, so I'm not convinced a string is being used. I don't know if the statue is possessed, but I do think this is real paranormal. Is this a possession? We see a woman come on screen, and it appears she's in a bathroom, and she's talking to the camera operator. She turns back to the bathroom sink, and then she takes a step back, and the door slams shut. When the door reopens, she's up in the ceiling, and no clue why. The clip ends with her in the bathtub, spaced out. I know this footage seems like it should be real, simply because of how little time it took for them to open the door, see her up in the ceiling, see her down in the bathtub. But because it's dark and because the camera is jumping around, it seems to me that that's an easy way to edit that, wait for her to get up to the ceiling. If she's a gymnast, which she probably is, very easy to get up there. And then for her to get back down and lay down in the tub. And the reason why I'm convinced this is just staged, simple. If this was your loved one and this was happening, would you continue to hold the camera and film it? Or would you drop the camera, grab a phone, try to call 911? You know, it makes no sense to keep running a camera unless you're trying to create paranormal activity and not capture paranormal activity. I like this clip because they're different. This is not something that we typically see, but it's really impressive for her to get up there on the wall like that and hold herself up there, because that's no easy task whatsoever what she's doing. So for creepiness, definitely give it thumbs up, but for real paranormal, not convinced that's what's going on with this clip. Is this restaurant haunted? We will start to see objects move on their own. Who or what are moving these objects and why? So this is a pizzeria, and I just wondered, did the owner die? And that's who's haunting this place? So now we have a delivery driver that's talking to somebody behind the counter, and we can't see that person behind the counter. And that box just went flying across the room. What caused that to move so quickly? We also have a pin on the countertop that is flung to the floor. What moved that? In both instances, the items are flying in a direction that would be off camera and in the direction of the camera, so somebody's most likely just off camera pulling a string. What is this thermal hit? When we get to the point of the camera actually moving around, we'll want to watch out for this Barney Rubble, Fred Flintstone cartoon character that apparently this thermal camera picked up. So it's always important to look at the gauge on the right hand side to get an idea of the temperature setting. So we see that if it's all blue, it's going to be really cold. If it's white, it's going to be hot. Did you see it? It's only there for a split second. So if it was a real human being, it would typically be multicolored, with the pelvic region being the hottest. There's not a lot of movement, even though it appears like there might be. I don't know if they comped this in during the editing process, but that thing goes from being there to the entire screen changing color. This is the picture of the little guy on there, and then the other picture on top is right after he disappeared. Look how the trees all the way over on the left side completely changed colors in just one frame. The ground went from a more orange color to a less orange color. The fact that it dropped a degree from one frame to the other, that's not what really triggers my suspicion, because the thermal constantly jumps up and down in temperature depending on what it's aimed at. It's that all the other elements in each of these frames changed in just one frame. And maybe that is proof of the paranormal, because it did cause the thermal to react that way. I don't know, but I'm a little bit suspicious on this one. Is this a ghost in this hotel? So the curtain on the left-hand side really starts moving, and then a shimmery ghost-like figure appears. The man starts tossing and turning like his arms are being grabbed, and then he wakes up holding his head, and the shimmery ghost is gone, only to reappear. So supposedly this is in a hotel room. The obvious question is, why is there a camera pointed at the bed in a hotel room? It seems to me the window is cracked open and it's a windy night, or there's a fan that's been placed on the other side of the curtains. Is there someone standing on the other side of the curtain? And what caused the bright flash? The way the curtain moves in the beginning, it just kind of looks like somebody's just pushing it out. So I'm not convinced it's a fan or the window cracked open. It might just be a human being standing there. Either way, too much of this seems like it's staged. I don't know if you're aware of this, but that vertical line that's going through the entire video, that's actually an editing effect. So they've used a black and white editing effect to make this creepier. If we take the image we used earlier and add that effect, this is what you get. You'll get the vertical lines going down through it flashing in between the black and the white. So yeah, that's basically just an editing effect. Different editing software will have slightly different of this old type of black and white video, but it's still an editing effect. And you can see how much it will alter an image. So I think it's staged. What is this nighttime creeper? In the lower right side of the screen, we start seeing this blurry image walking through this business. Yep, it's a bug. You can see with the way it's walking, much like how we walk, where one side moves, then the other side moves, then the other side, and it keeps going. They just have more legs than we do, but there's still a rhythm to that motion of just simply walking, or in their case, I guess it's still walking and not crawling. But at any rate, yep, just a bug. Is this a shadow person? So in this dark space, we suddenly see a shadow cross in front of the camera. What is that? Is that a shadow person? Is it a real person? It's definitely creepy, but I'm going to consult with you guys on this one, so I want you to help me out on it. I don't know what this object is that's closest to the camera right there, but I see the shadow crossing that before I see it, the upper body. So I'm thinking it's a shadow of somebody behind the camera, but in front of a light source that's being cast, and it's an elongated shadow. Do you guys see that too, or am I just misunderstanding what a shadow person should be? I was thinking this thing was closer to the back wall, but now I'm thinking it's on the floor here closest to the camera, and it might be free floating. Oh, I'm not sure on this one. It's like I want it to be real. I think it might be real, but then I think maybe it's just a shadow. Please leave me a comment and let me know what you see. Is this an alien? We will see this alien-like figure hiding in this tall grass. Is it an alien? Is it a balloon on a string? Is it a statue or a figurine on a pole? Is someone hiding behind that bush or tree and just pulled it off camera? Is it a costume or disguise and that's a small person? Is it animatronics? Well, it's not composited in because we can see that it will move behind these bushes, and it's not a picture going behind that bush. I don't think it's CG or video effects. So there's definitely something there. And I'm not convinced it's on a string because it would not have stayed level. It would have bounced up or down. However, it might be some type of a figurine on a pole, and it's mimic. They can move the pole in such a way that they're mimicking walking away. So let's think for a second if this was a real alien. Would an alien ship land in the middle of nowhere? Or would they land in an area where there's more activity, such as a large city? Well, what about us? Would we, if we were the aliens visiting another planet, are we going to go where the largest population is or where there's minimal population? And would we assume that all this shrubbery is just a plant? Or would we question if that plant is a species that can attack? Because we do have plants on Earth that do attack, whether it's via a spiky thorn or a spiky ball, burr, whatever you want to call them, or, plants that eat flies. I did not believe in aliens until we Earthlings landed those rovers on Mars. When I realized how this jacked up planet that we're on, where we can't play nicely with each other, can actually land on another planet, I realized other species might be far more advanced than us and be able to already have been here. Do I think this is an alien? No, I do think it's staged. Just because the distance away from this thing, from that porch to zoom in, and see something that's almost camouflaged with the night and with the weeds, and you being able to zoom in immediately and find it, yeah, you knew it was there. And you knew it was there because you placed it there. Another shadow person? On the left side, we will suddenly see a dark shadow move towards the staircase. And then we will switch to a different camera as it goes down the stairs. It manifests at the bottom landing, and then will slowly move down the stairway. So could this be recreated using editing tricks? So if I took his background of the staircase, created a blob, and just used a diagonal animation, fade in and fade out, it is possible to do something through editing to create that. Is that what he did? Well, let's look at this clip again. I freeze frame where that image disappears. Does he get it lined back up again? No, it's actually smaller and a little bit to the right. It looks like it wasn't lined up to go down the stairs correctly, and also it has to get smaller when it goes down the stairs and away from the camera. Watch again to see if you'll see it right here. Did you see the cut that time? So there's one more clip with this dark shadow going down this hallway. And again, it's really creepy. But you saw that cut again, didn't you? He had to cut it and angle it so it'd go into the wall or doorway. And when you use a preset animation, that's exactly how you have to do it. This time he made it smaller again, but moved it over to the left. He has to cut the footage because when you use a preset animation, you have no choice but to stop it and restart it to change the direction. Because that's exactly what I just had to do to get my little blob to come down the stairs and then fade out. This guy makes some really creepy videos. Regardless of whether it's real or not, I recommend going and checking out his channel because he really puts in the effort. There were several clips in this video that really creeped me out. It doesn't have to be real to be freaky and scary. I don't know if he speaks English or not, but just the sound effects and the visuals are creepy and scary, regardless of if you can understand what he's saying or not. Is this a cryptid? Suddenly, a creepy figure appears in front of the camera. What is that? It's a bug on the lens. Oh, there's a different camera or a different angle, and it's still a bug on a lens. Call an exterminator, not the Ghostbusters. Is this a ghost rattling this chain? As this lady is doing her exercises, the chain on her left side starts moving, rotating, and lifting. Is a ghost doing that? I don't know if the camera operator is in on this or if the lady is in on this, but he kept her center frame, so I'm not convinced he's involved. He also told her to get down, but it does look like it's just being pulled up by a string, so I'm not convinced that it's not a prank or staged. I just don't know if the two people that are involved in the clip are involved in this prank or not. And even though we can't see a string can easily be blotched out through color matching. A shadowy figure? As this young lady is dancing in front of the camera, we see behind her a pile of what may be clothes and something else. It ducks down out of sight from the camera. Could it just be a jacket that fell? Could it be any other article of fabric that just simply slid off? Maybe due to there's a fan over there or there's a vibration on that table. The way that it slides down, it does kind of give it a human action. So it could be just a human being in a costume or disguise. Oh, and completely irrelevant, but my elementary school, the mascot was also Buckeyes, and the color scheme was also red and white. So I just have to wonder if this was taken in my hometown. Now back to the regular scheduled program. I'm not sure if this is from a TikTok video or not, but there's so many of them on TikTok where somebody's dancing in the foreground and yet in the background is some mystical creature. So I'm not convinced this one is real. I think that it might be staged. However, I don't know if the girl that's doing the dancing is in on the staging or if an older sibling decided to just pull this prank and hide behind her and do this. Just to scare her, maybe. What do you think on this one? Do you think it's staged? Or do you think they really did capture a shadowy figure that's not transparent? Is this ghost trying to escape? The flashing lights are from emergency vehicles, but the door handle keeps swinging back and forth, right to left and back and forth. But is that even a handle? Could it be a key on a keychain and the keychain is just swinging because maybe it's windy? Because it looks to me like the door handle is above that swinging object. So even though it doesn't look like it's windy, we don't have anything around us to show if the wind is blowing. So we don't even know why emergency vehicles are at this place or if they're at a different house. It does not look like there's anybody in this house. It is weird though that we have emergency lights flashing on and off behind the camera apparently. And yet the reflection in the window doesn't show any type of emergency vehicles whatsoever. We will get a weird light that will flash towards the bottom of the screen that looks like it's a reflection in this window, but don't know why there's emergency vehicles there if they're even there, because that flashing light could actually be a editing effect. So my guess is there's a key in the key lock and the keychain is most likely paper or very lightweight. It's windy and possibly you have some editing effect creating the red lights. This is an example of a video overlay that would imply traffic or emergency vehicles. Is this caused by a poltergeist? Suddenly items start falling off a shelf. What is causing these items to fall? Is it a poltergeist? Is it gravity? Is it poor stocking of inventory? Was a string used? Is this a publicity prank? what doesn't really look like an earthquake or a tornado or any other type of natural phenomenon that would cause those items to fall. So it's either poor stocking of the inventory, a prank, or real. What are your thoughts on this one? What are these flying lights? This motion sensor not only captures the cat in the left lower corner, but it's also catching these white misty streaks going in front of it. The owners believe that these white streaks are paranormal. Now, I don't know if the motion is activated by maybe one of the cat's whiskers getting in front of the sensor before we see the cat's head. I do know that bugs the size of moths and wasps and bees have the ability to set off motion sensors, because that happens quite a bit with my security cameras. So could these white streaks be caused by bugs that are distorted by the camera because they're flying too fast and too close to the lens? That does happen on my cameras, but I don't know if that's happening with this camera. Could it be dust? Obviously, if this camera is sitting in front of a vent or near a vent, that could very easily be blowing dust in front of the camera, but it seems to be too sporadic for it to be dust being blown by a vent, because that would typically go in the same direction. However, what would cause dust to fly in an erratic direction is the swish of a cat's tail. Maybe it's a combination of dust and bugs all being disturbed by the cat and its swishing tail. The owners feel like their house is haunted, and they always feel like something is in this basement area. And it may be haunted, but I don't think we've caught any paranormal activity. Who's making these noisy steps? Normally I only give you guys visual analysis, I don't do sound effects. And the reason why is what I just did. I went onto YouTube Studio and I grabbed some sound effects and tried to replicate that sound that he had. And everything I did was editing tricks. I did not get my clip from Dark Ghost Paranormal, but that's where this clip actually comes from. It appears that he makes paranormal videos and doesn't necessarily capture paranormal activity, but he speaks a different language, so I'm not sure. Check out his channel. His stuff is really intense and really scary, so go for it. I actually enjoyed the clip. Is this a ghost orb? Okay, for this one, you have everything you need to tell me in the comment section, what is this? I asked the question, is this a ghost orb? Because where I got this clip, they believe this is a ghost orb. Do you agree with them? If you do, just go ahead and say, yep, it's a ghost orb. If you don't agree with that, tell me what you think that is. Because if you've watched any of my videos, you have a clue what I think it is. So just leave a comment below and let me know what you think. Is this a spectral being? So as these individuals are exploring this abandoned building, they think they saw a shoe or a foot in this doorway, so they're kind of focusing on this right at the moment. But then they hear a noise to their right and they pan back over to the right and suddenly see a figure in a doorway that was not there before. What is this thing? Is it a ghost? Is it a cryptid? Is it an alien? It's really tall because it's almost hitting the top of the door jamb. Is it a living person on stilts? Is it someone in an Angry Bird costume? Needless to say, these young men bolted out of this building after seeing that creepy figure. So I've had this on slow motion so that we could really take the time to try and figure out what this thing is. So I'm going to speed it up to normal speed. So it really doesn't matter what speed we're on or what color we use. We can't really get it to look any clearer. I think it's just a person in a costume on stilts. I just don't know for sure if the people that were operating the camera were in on the staging or not. Is this a manifestation? So we have a night vision camera that suddenly captures this smoky mist. What is that? Is it a manifestation of a ghost? Is there a natural explanation for that smoky mist that comes through that doorway? Is it CG? Is it video effects? I'm going to show you 5 video effects that are not like what we're seeing in this video clip, but I want you to tell me if it's possible what they're doing is a video effect after seeing these type of video effects. So what do you think? Is it possible that this is just a video effect? All editing software have different types of elements for video effects. I've showed you the ones that are free for me to use. I did not find one exactly like this, but you can slow the video effects down, which is exactly what I did on mine. You can also animate these effects so that they come flying into the room. It just depends on how good you are as to what you can do with these video effects. I'm not to that level yet. I can just do basic presets. Is this a poltergeist? As we look at this table, suddenly the box on the table starts flapping open, and then the chairs and the table start moving. Is this poltergeist activity? This would be awesome if it was real. Did you notice the drapes behind that sofa at the back of the room? Why is the one drape on the right-hand side swung out so wide? Why does the window look different on the right side than the left side? Has someone rigged strings and is standing on the outside of the house. Well, I definitely have to give them credit for moving the stuff away from the camera and showing that it's going in a direction that is still on camera. Or at least if I was faking this, I would be doing it that way. Just run strings through the window and stand outside the window. Is this a shadow person? This person hears something downstairs and they take their camera that also has night vision and goes into this room to see if there's anything there. They switch it to night vision and brighten it. Initially, we don't see anything, but then we pan to the right and suddenly we see a figure. What was that? And of course, they have the piece of furniture covered with a sheet to add to the ambiance. And in the corner, there appears to be a mannequin. Yikes, that's creepy. But then it moves and is directly behind them. There is a 6-second delay from the time we first see it to it's right behind them. It moved maybe 6 feet, 8 feet. I'm sure a ghost could move that fast, that far. If there's nothing in the way, and I can't really tell by these two scenes, and you have a straight shot, it might be possible to be able to move that in 6 seconds. However, if you have a human being posing as a mannequin, they could definitely make it in 6 seconds. If there's a cut in the film that gives them more time, I don't see the cut. It's definitely creepy, but I'm not convinced it's not staged. Tell me in the comments if you think the mannequin was moved or a human moved. Where did this mysterious figure come from? The camera view starts on the right hand side and it slowly pans towards the left side of the room. And suddenly a figure appears. But when the cameras quickly pan back, the figure's gone. Was that a ghost? Is it a prank? Is it hoaxed? Is it staged? Where did it come from? Where did it go? Something was definitely there. But is it living or dead? The standing light behind it and the two curtain holders kind of give an optical illusion of this thing wearing a hat that's way too high for its head and a couple of fluffy sleeves. But it's definitely not transparent, potentially bald, possibly female, and isn't it the easiest way to get out of picture frame is simply lay down on the ground? So when they panned over and caught this, we're not seeing the floor, but we see the person standing there, and now again we don't see the floor. My guess is it's potentially staged. Is this warehouse haunted? As the security camera watches this warehouse, suddenly the gate unlatches and unlocks and opens wide. Did a ghost unlock this gate? This one is a little tricky because the footage is not that great, so we can't really see the mechanism that had the gate closed. If I could see that mechanism better, I'd have a better opinion on whether or not a ghost actually did that. The fence part itself I can see being done with a string. Typically these type of fence have a wheel on the bottom that help them glide open, but not being able to see that latching mechanism better, I can't tell if it's real or if it's been faked. What is this misty light? On the right side of our screen, we will suddenly see a misty light. What is that? Is it a ghost trying to manifest itself? Is it an editing trick? Is it a hoax? Or is it real? Now the investigator walks away, and suddenly that light moves and gets closer to the camera. Is it an editing trick? I've already shown how he uses a dark shadow to create an editing trick in the last video. I can also show you how an object can be bounced through animation, as well as make it more transparent and slowing down the effect so that you get that creepy vibe. This is an editing element that I reduced the brightness, slowed it down, and made it bounce. I made it smaller and I moved it off to the side. So he controlled the bounce a little bit more, made it more transparent, but it's still an editing trick. Are these ghosts in this morgue? We will suddenly see what appears to be spectral beings. Are these real images of ghosts? What exactly are we looking at? Did these night watchmen actually capture the holy grail of the paranormal community? Or is this editing trickery? It appears to me like there's sharp edges, which is indicative of video overlay, or a compositing where they filmed it twice. We also have some lights that are circling, and that's a video effect. So that channel that I got this from has added this video effect to this footage. I don't know where that channel got this footage from to be able to give you the original footage. Do you see that sharp line in the middle of the screen? That's what I'm talking about with photo overlay. I've taken the exact same footage and overlaid it on top of the other. But I didn't do any type of color matching to blend out that line. They've done a little bit more color matching. Their sharp line is going along the sides of the body or the image. You can still see the sharpness of that edge where they just cut that image out and pasted it into the actual footage. I just exaggerated it more so that you could see it, so you could be on the watch for it. Okay, so I just created this image for you guys. And I'm not looking for pretty or anything like that because I'm going to cut this image to show you that even though we can see that sharp line, it doesn't mean that it's not being photoshopped or not being overlaid when there's not a sharp line. Because you can go into, like this is photo mind, you can go into create an image like I've done here, and then go over here to this free hand selection tool, and it allows me to cut whatever shape I want to cut. And as a result of this cut, now I've got rid of all those sharp lines. So now it would not be as easy to tell that it's been an overlay. But in the example that we've been working with, it is. I don't know if they took two different sets of footage and overlaid them. I don't know if they did a masking technique which removes the black and only leaves you with a white gray scale. I don't know if they did a composite where they're showing you a hidden layer within the editing. I'm not good enough at recognizing those different things to be able to know that. I just know when I have a sharp line, that is going to indicate it's been edited to look that way. I know they can do color matching to get things to blend in better. But in this case, they didn't do that well enough, and you can see the sharp line going vertically along the sides of the image. What caused this bottle opener to fall? Suddenly, this bottle opener attached to the counter falls. What caused it to fall? Is this simply a case of wasn't attached correctly and gravity? Was a string used? Unfortunately, because I can't see it clearly enough to know how it's sitting on that counter, I can't tell what's going on with this one. So it could be paranormal. I don't know. What do you guys think? Put your comments in the put your thoughts in the comment section below. Is this a shadow person? We will suddenly see a shadowy figure walk into this room and then walk through another door. It's very slow and deliberate in its walking. But is it real? When it gets to that second doorway and it keeps its shape, it does make me question if this one is real or not. I'm not seeing necessarily the sharp lines, but at the same time, I know that a good editor could completely remove any type of sharp line. And yet it still kind of seems like there's a little bit of boxiness to it, but I'm not sure if that's just the pixelization that's causing that boxiness. But what stands out to me is that other pole doesn't have a reflection on it, as if someone edited out the reflection. And this is someone walking outside, and the shadow actually came in front of that pole, but maybe they edited it to remove the reflection or the shadow on that pole to give it the illusion it's behind the pole. I don't know if it's because I want this to be real that I'm thinking it might be. What are your thoughts on this one? Another shadow person? We suddenly will see a creepy shadow from the bottom of the screen moving towards the top. What is that? Well, you know my philosophy on this. It's a bug on the lens. Do you see anything different than a bug on a lens? Let me know in the description below. We can even zoom in, but it still just looks like a bug on a lens to me. Does this man have a stalker? While this man is sleeping, strange things start to happen in his bedroom. First, a bottle will fall off of a shelf and the curtain will blow in the wind. His blanket is peeled off of him. And that's just the beginning. Suddenly, the drape is pulled open and he recovers himself. And then a figure is standing outside of the window. Is he being stalked by an ex-lover? Is this a witch that's interfering with his sleep and causing items to continue to fall off the shelves? Well, this time it kind of wakes him up and he gets up for a minute and turns on the light, and that figure disappears. Will it come back? I think so. Of course, the first thing you do when you wake up is you check your cell phone. So he stretches, and then he realizes that the drape is open, and he closes that. He kind of just wanders around the room and picks up some stuff and grabs his blanket and decides that enough's enough, and he just turns off the light and goes back to bed. But now, when we focus on that window on the right hand side, suddenly that same figure is going to peek through that window. Watch for it. The curtain will start blowing again, and then it will just suddenly slide open while we see that figure in the window on the right hand side and not the window with the drape. More items fall. Again, he's woken up. He again gets up, decides that he needs a glass of water, and has to hunt down his blanket again. So he, of course, is adjusting his eyes to the light. Again, he looks up at the camera to make sure that that's on and working. And, that little red dot that says it's recording. Um, Again, he looks at his camera, or his cell phone rather, gets himself the drink of water, and still doesn't notice that face in that window. But he keeps drinking and keeps drinking until suddenly he notices and falls on his ass. It went from horror to comedy. Oh no, honey, did I make you fall? Sorry about that. I love you. Take me back. No. It's always nice to have the comedy in our horror movies. What is this mystical light? Suddenly, in the middle of our screen, we will see a light that moves in an erratic manner. Is that a spirit trying to manifest itself? Is it a ghost? My guess is it's probably a spider web that is right in front of the camera and is being distorted by the camera and the light's reflecting off of it. I'm not convinced it's anything paranormal. I have to wonder if there's an air vent near this camera and that's what caused it to move and blow out because the air conditioner or the heater came on. I have to wonder if the spider showed up and they cut that part of the clip. Is this another poltergeist? As the man is filming his kitchen, suddenly the cabinet door opens and closes. He moves away from it, but then he sees that the lamp above the table is moving. He reaches up to stop the lamp from moving. He starts to move towards the cabinet to see if he can get a closer look at what's going on there, but it doesn't appear that anything is there. We also see that this is a type of cabinet that doesn't look like it has a handle, so it doesn't look like it would be easy to put a string on it to get it to open up. They would have to use tape on the inside of the cabinet, hidden out of frame, for a string to have been used. It's possible that he bumped the lamp when he immediately turned and moved away from that kitchen, so that could have been what caused that lamp to swing. I don't know how tall he is, but if he was tall enough and wearing a cowboy hat, he could definitely have hit that lamp. He also could have squeaked or screamed and startled somebody upstairs and their footsteps upstairs cause the lamp to move if there is an upstairs, or a string could be used on the lamp as well. This is one of those clips where I could see how it could have been faked, but I also see that it's subtle enough that it could have been real paranormal. So I'm not sure on this one, but I do have a rule of thumb: if there's too much activity, it's probably not paranormal. If it was just the cabinet or just the lamp, maybe, but the combination makes me skeptical. So I'm not sure on this one. What do you guys think? Is this creature a ghost? As we watch the security footage, all of a sudden we'll see a misty figure cross in front of the lens. And this is a restaurant, and that is a bug. Call an exterminator, not the Ghostbusters. Does a ghost need a drink? There's a young boy that comes into the footage to get a closer look at this can moving, and so I'm trying to crop him out to protect him, but we need to just focus on the can because it's doing a little bit of a twist. So when it twists like this, could it be a magnet under the table? Yes, maybe. I can't remember if aluminum cans are magnetic or not. I don't think they are, but I can't remember. Too many years since science class or any experiments. And can I just say, I didn't even know they still sold Royal Crown soda, at least in the United States. So I'd love to know where this video is from. And I don't think we would see a string if they used a string. It's possible it's sitting on a condensation pocket and that's what's causing it to move. It's also possible that there is a roach or a beetle or some hard-shell insect that got into the can, and it's actually trying to get out. And if it's large enough, and that, opening of a soda can is pretty large, it could be causing it to move. So it's possible there's just a bug in there. The fact that it's turned away from them, it tells me that they're no longer drinking it. Even with the uncropped footage, I don't get to see enough of the space to know if there's anything else moving in the house. So I don't know if a plane has gone overhead, a train has gone by, or a mild earthquake is happening. But it is also subtle enough that it could be paranormal. What are the vital vortices? Many people refer to these 12 locations as vile vortices, but I name them vital vortices. These 12 locations have mysterious events and mysterious circumstances surrounding them. Among these mysterious locations is the Bermuda Triangle or the Devil's Triangle. The Bermuda Triangle is located in between the Bermuda Islands, Puerto Rico, and Florida in the North Atlantic Ocean. Some people believe it's aliens behind this mystery. Since 1945, 15 planes have disappeared and 13 ships have disappeared. There has also been 2 lighthouse keepers on Bimini, Bermuda Island that disappeared. One theory involves methane gas. In some areas of the Bermuda Triangle, there is methane gas, and sometimes these bubbles are released from the methane gas and could destabilize the water that ships are floating over, as well as when they pop in the air, it could destabilize the air that planes are flying through. Another theory involves hurricanes. That entire triangle is Hurricane Alley. But one of the things I noticed is even though one of the most recent disappearance was during one of the hurricanes, most of the others are happening in December and January. Hurricane season is June through November. But if most of these disappearances are happening in December and January, is it because the water is colder? And because the water is colder, that's releasing the methane gas that's causing the bubbles? But instead of trying to solve the Bermuda Triangle by itself, maybe we should be looking at it based on all of the vortices that are on the planet Earth. These locations have a higher concentration of the Earth's magnetic field, and magnetic fields interfere with compasses. And on land, many of these locations are not inhabitable or no longer inhabited. If we look to the west of the Bermuda Triangle in the Pacific Ocean, we see the Hamakula volcanoes in Hawaii. This volcano is actually an underwater volcano, and it's on the southeast side of the island. And again, this area has problems with ships missing and planes missing. This area is also prone to not only volcanoes, but seismic activity. So once again, do we have some type of bubbles that are creating a disturbance with the water and the air above it that might cause planes and boats to crash and disappear? South of the equator and south of the Hamakula volcanoes is Easter Island. Easter Island is part of Chile in South America, and it's in the South Pacific Ocean. Easter Island is over 1,000 miles from the next closest inhabited island and over 2,000 miles away from South America, the closest continent. This small island that is only 14 miles long and 7 miles wide has nearly 1,000 of these Moa statues that are made out of volcanic rock and average 13 feet high. Some of these statues are as tall as 30 feet high and weigh 80 tons. So there's a lot of mysteries surrounding those volcanic statues and who might have carved them. And the civilization that made those statues apparently has disappeared. There's a couple of places on our list of vortices where the entire civilization has disappeared. East of Easter Island is the South Atlantic Anomaly. This section of Earth has a higher concentration of ionized radiation caused by Earth's magnetic field being lower. This area of Earth actually interferes with satellites. They discovered this anomaly when satellites kept failing just in this one region of the Earth. They discovered that the Van Allen radiation belt actually comes closest to the Earth's surface at that location. I kept wanting to say Van Halen instead of Van Allen the entire time I was talking about this crazy radiation belt. South of the South Atlantic Anomaly is the South Pole. This is one of the least inhabited continents on the planet. So little of the Antarctic has been explored, so there's so many things that they're still going to discover. They continue to discover more species, and not just penguin species or seal species or whale species, but other species that are surviving in this harsh climate. They have discovered lakes as well as rainforest in the Antarctic, which probably supports the orange peel theory, which is basically just the tectonic plates are constantly moving over the center core of the Earth, which is molten lava. And that causes all the surface of the Earth to change and rotate its position to where some things that used to be in an area of a rainforest is now under the Antarctic. The polar regions of the Earth are much more exposed to solar storms, and these solar storms do interfere with radio communication. Northeast of the South Pole is Great Zimbabwe. Located in the country of Zimbabwe in Africa, we have an old civilization that has disappeared. This city was developed in the late Iron Age, and it was built around the 11th century and apparently abandoned around the 15th century. At its peak, it might have held about 18,000 people. Recent discoveries in the area include a higher concentration of the Earth's magnetic field, and this area may have a greater impact on the reversal of the poles. The Wharton Basin is on the west side of Australia in the Indian Ocean. This area is studied quite a bit because of the Indo-Australian plate. This plate and the Burma plate ruptured, causing the Indian Ocean tsunami in 2004. East of Australia is the Loyalty Islands. This area is also known for its seismic activity, and in the past few years they've had over 50 earthquakes in the area. They also have whirlpools in the area, most likely due to the Coral Sea and the Pacific Ocean not playing nicely together. So we'll jump back up to the top of the Earth at the North Pole. The North Pole is a little bit different than the South Pole in which it's actually surrounded by multiple continents. It's also attached to specific countries. It still has some of the harshest land on Earth because of the freezing temperature, but it also has some of the most beautiful lights, but it is also impacted by solar storms, much like the South Pole is. Because there's more planes and more pilots closer to the Arctic than there are to the Antarctic, we have more evidence of the solar storms interfering with electronics and communications. And if we go back and look at Van Allen's graph, we see that both the North Pole and the South Pole have a magnetic axis. And it's the deviation between the rotational axis and the magnetic axis that's causing the South Atlantic anomaly. South of the North Pole, we have the Algerian megaliths. The megaliths are located in the country of Algeria in northern Africa and is part of the Sahara Desert. Just about every type of megalith has been found in Algeria. So often when we talk about pyramids, we talk about the Egyptian pyramids, but Algeria had its own pyramids. Algerian pyramids were constructed between the 4th century and the 7th century. Artifacts going back to the Stone Age have been discovered at this location. Perhaps one of the oddities about this area is how well preserved the Stone Age artifacts are. And due to the fact that there's very little rain in this region, it actually has preserved those Stone Age artifacts and prevented erosion from occurring. But thanks to these Algerian megaliths, we get a glimpse into the prehistoric lives of humans. East of the Algerian megaliths is the Mohenjo-Daro, located in India. In ancient times, this area was populated by the Indus Valley Civilization, another population of people that has disappeared. This is such an advanced city for its time that it has many marveling at its sophistication and its urban city life. And once again, that lack of rain has produced an area that has not been eroded away over time by rainwater. But maybe the bigger mystery of this area is how did all of those clay and stone brick survive all these centuries when this entire area is a coastal area? How has it escaped erosion? And our final vortex is the Dragon's Triangle, also known as the Devil's Sea, which is off the coast of Japan. Much like the Bermuda Triangle, the Dragon's Triangle also has its fair share of missing ships and missing planes. Compasses will malfunction, tales of ghost ships and tales of sea monsters all are part of the reputation of the Dragon's Triangle. And they have also found methane hydrates in this area. It too is known for its strange weather patterns. But just like the Bermuda Triangle, the Dragon's Triangle needs to be looked at with the bigger picture of all the vortices that some people refer to as vile vortices. Each of these vortices have a higher magnetic field, but these areas also appear to be very strategically placed on the Earth. Is this the actions of an ancient civilization that created these vortices? Is it from an alien planet in order to control this planet? Or is it based on the natural evolution of the Earth? We know that the Earth rotates on its own axis, and we know that the Earth orbits around the Sun. And we know on Earth we have physics and we have gravity that helps keep us attached to Earth instead of flying out into space. But what keeps the Earth spinning on its axis? So if we look at a top that's spinning, doesn't it need balance to stay spinning? Wouldn't it wobble if it wasn't balanced? Wouldn't it just stop if it no longer had the velocity to continue to spin? These vortices in the northern hemisphere run along the line of the Tropic of Cancer, and in the southern hemisphere they run along the line of the Tropic of Capricorn. You can choose to believe that it's nothing but ghosts and demons and devils that plague these vortices, and you can call them vile vortices. But my theory is if you destroyed any one of these magnetic fields, you would cause the Earth to wobble off of its axis, and it would be such a violent wobble that I don't think any species would survive that wobble. So I'm calling these vortices vital. Is this a ghost orb? As we look at this very grainy footage, it appears suddenly an orb flies in front of the camera. Is this a ghost orb? Even with speeding up the footage, It doesn't give us any more definition. Zooming in doesn't help either. It's just this odd shaped item floating or flying in front of the camera. Is it a bug? Or is it a reflection of some object that is getting hit by the wind and the sun and causing it to appear and disappear? I'm not convinced it's paranormal, but the footage is just not defined enough to tell one way or the other. So it's inconclusive at this point. Viewers' discretion advised, we're about to see a naked doll. So as we watch this doll, it starts moving on its own. The arm just keeps rising and then it falls. Is this doll possessed? Is this doll trying to reach out to the living? Is the spirit inside this doll trying to reach out to its body? Or is it a string attached to the hand? Is there a mouse or some other type of critter that is inside of the doll chewing on the arm, and that's what's causing the movement? Has a lever been inserted on the backside of the doll that causes it to move on its own? Is it laying on some type of a hammock and it's moving because maybe the hammock is moving? Because on the left hand side we actually do see the fabric sink in as if somebody's touching the fabric or something is touching the fabric. This is one of those where I could see how it could be faked, but I don't know if it is fake or real. This could be a possessed doll. Is this a shadow person? As this abandoned building is being explored, suddenly we will see a shadow cross in front of a door. Is it an optical illusion? Is it the shadow of the camera person? Is it a shadow of another living person? Or is it a non-living shadow? It seems like there might be a mirror behind the camera operator, and the light is hitting that mirror, and as he moves forward, it catches that mirror and the light in such a way that it creates him as the shadow person? Or is there a light behind him that's silhouetting him on that door? Either way, it appears to be in sync with his movement, so I think it's his shadow. Is this a poltergeist? An object flies off the wall. A chair suddenly slides across the floor, and then a filing cabinet drawer suddenly flies open. Supposedly, this took place in a hospital. Is this a ghost of a recently departed person who's upset that they died? Is this staged? Is it a prank? Is it bored living people just having fun? The camera operator actually gives this one away because they're facing that camera right at the wall instead of down the hallway. So that caused them to follow that poster across the room, which set them up to be at an angle where they're watching the chair. Then they follow the chair across the room till they get to the filing cabinet. So it's actually the camera's predictability of what's going to happen next that actually gives this away as staged. Is this balloon possessed? We will suddenly see a balloon move into the center of the frame, and it will make its way down the escalator. Is this balloon alive? Is this balloon possessed? Is this a simple case of the balloon is slowly deflating and it's following the path of the airflow through this mall? Is it possible these escalators are leading to an outside door and the balloon is just being pushed by a vacuum or pulled by a vacuum? Is this a case of CG and the balloon is not real? Is this just simply an animation effect? Did they simply use a bounce effect just like this? What anomaly was detected? An SLS camera is being used, and suddenly at that post, an anomaly will appear of a stick figure. Did this SLS detect a ghost? The SLS cameras were developed for the gaming industry so that they could capture much more accurately human movement to make the video games more realistic instead of cartoonish. If you ask if these SLS cameras are still being used for gaming development in Google, you'll find every single post is about ghost hunting for these cameras. And the gaming community didn't trust the cameras because they would have what they thought were these type of glitches. But the developers of the cameras say that these are not glitches, and they've actually studied more on these type of kinetic cameras, trying to figure out if they actually are capturing ghosts. But in this case, it's like it could be real or something that the camera actually captured, but it could also be easily edited to make it look like it's there. The left side is mine, the right side is the original. I was not trying to make it exact, but just trying to show you one possibility of how this could be done. Are these doors possessed? As this streamer is recording live, he's talking about the fact that he's having problems with doors in his house closing suddenly, and the force in which the door closes would not be attributed to a vacuum. This apparently happens with more than one door in his house. Is his house haunted? Is the ghost mad because he's making too much noise? Is this a parent ghost that's trying to send him to his room and close the door in anger? Is a string being used? One of the things I noticed with both doors is he has a hook on it with clothes hanging from it. Is that somehow hiding strings or hiding some type of mechanic that allows the door to be closed? So unfortunately, because we can't see the entire door, we don't know if a pet jumped up on the door and closed it. We don't get to see really the handle of the door to see if there's string maybe attached to the knob. I don't know for sure if he's alone or not. I don't know if he's rigged some type of device that he's just hitting a button and that's causing it to close. So this one might be real, but I can also see so many different ways it could be rigged that I'm not convinced it's paranormal. Is this doll possessed? As this teenager is holding this very large doll, the head of the doll suddenly will turn and look at the teenager. Now I'm using the skull to block the teenager and protect them from any predators, but it's not blocking the paranormal activity. We can still clearly see the doll's head turn. So based on the teenager's reaction, I don't think the teenager is involved in any prank here, but still could be the one being pranked. It doesn't appear that the head is very loose, and we can see both of her hands are in front of the doll, not behind it. Someone could be off camera and pulled a string or something and caused the head to move, but I don't know. This seems like it could actually be real. What do you think on this one? Is this toy possessed? As this child is playing with a toy on the table, it will suddenly move, seemingly by itself. Is the child kicking the table and that's what's causing it to move? Have the parents tied strings to it and that's what's causing it to move? If I can't cut the footage in a way that doesn't mess up the paranormal to remove the child, then I'm just going to cover the child up with this picture of a skull. It's just the best way to protect them. I've added the cat eyes so predators know that we're watching them. So back to the clip. I don't know if this toy has wheels on it. The surface does look like it might be slippery, and the child is not old enough to really react to this type of movement. So the lack of reaction by the child is not an indicator of this not being staged or being staged. I just feel like this is a loving grandparent that just moved the toy closer to the child so they wouldn't have to reach as far. What is this night crawler? This video was captured in Yosemite in California. We will suddenly see a white figure on the left-hand side move down this slope, and then a second figure shows up as well. However, in 2007, another video appeared with these same figures, except for Factor Baked Paranormal Files tried to debunk that footage and they were not successful. The original footage that I'll show you in a second here was captured in Fresno, California. This too was captured via security camera, and it just looks like two flapping legs that has almost no body and maybe a head. And this is the footage that the TV show tried to debunk. They did different type of fabric on a line, and they could not replicate the movement. They also debunked it being potentially a CG or video effect. But for whatever reason, this image here doesn't seem like it's the same. I'm just going to call it fabric legs, not fabricated, but looking like it's fabric legs don't look like the fabric is moving and flapping as much as the 2007 Fresno footage does. See how much just flapping of the legs we're seeing? Now, of course, that could be because we're looking at the side view in the Yosemite and more of a front view with the Fresno. Now, part of the problem is on the Fresno footage, we have side lighting and we have a higher perspective. For the Yosemite footage, we have apparently front lighting and a lower perspective. The other thing is the Fresno footage shows a shadow, so there's definitely something there. The Yosemite footage does not. Is that because of the lower view we can't see the shadow? Or is it because the Yosemite footage is CG? And some CG artists, especially back in 2011, would forget to do the shadow. So Fresno is potentially real, whereas Yosemite may be CG. So then the question becomes, if it's not CG and this is real, what is it? No clue. Is this doll watching these people? As the lady starts maneuvering the cups around, suddenly a doll will lean forward and sit up, apparently watching the activity. Is this doll rigged to sit up? Is this doll on some sort of a string or a timer? Is this a retail shop trying to drum up business? Or is this doll possessed by a curious ghost? Unfortunately, I can't see enough of the environment around the doll to know for sure one way or the other. Who or what moved this toy? The toy on the right side of this lady's leg suddenly moves. I thought this one was a little funny because once that toy moves, the person that's in charge of that box right there shoves the box into the toy. So if there's any hoax, I don't think the person holding the box is in on it. We do clearly see that the woman's left hand is under her knee, and we don't see what that hand is touching. Did she simply flick her fingers and move that toy herself? If she did, she managed to do it without moving the fabric on her pants. It's also possible the person with the box would have seen those fingers. Obviously, a string could move it. Or is there a childlike ghost present that wants to play with that toy? Is a poltergeist moving this furniture? We see that the chair is facing the bed, and then the stand in the corner has something on it, but then we see the chair start to move on its own. Initially, we see the chair move towards the bed, but then it suddenly turns 90 degrees. It does not appear that anybody is in the room. Who or what moved that chair? Is the chair on wheels and that's why it's so easy to move it? Then a few seconds later, the IV stand moves towards the chair. Why? Hospitals are known to be haunted. Did somebody recently die in this hospital room? Are they mad because they died? Or are they confused and don't understand if they're dead or not and are trying to get everybody's attention? Or is this just bored staff that are playing a hoax and just staged all of this with string or surgical tape? My rule of thumb is if there's too much activity, it's too good to be true. Is this a ghost in this forest? On the left-hand side, we will see something moving that looks transparent. What is it? Is this a camera glitch? Is this just some type of post-editing trick where they've just copied something in there and are moving it around and tracking its movement? Is it something in nature, such as a small animal? Will zooming in help us see it better, or will it be more obscure? Will speeding it up help us figure out what's going on? It gives this appearance of being more than one person, and the second person when they turn around, they look like they have a halo around them, like they're a god. But it blends in so much with the background that it's very hard to see what's going on and to make any rhyme or reason of this, other than it looks like some type of a film on top of a film. But it's so faint that you can barely see anything. Is this a ghost? At the top center of our screen, we will suddenly see a figure walk towards us before it disappears again. Is this a ghost? Is it a stalker? Is it a criminal? Or is it just the person walking home? Is this an incredibly small person who is not even 3 feet tall? And is this just a camera glitch where the light sensor is not picking up that person in full and they're actually taller but the camera's not picking that up? Is it one of those stationary camera data modules where it's not picking up all the pixels and not transmitting all the pixels to the camera's computer? I think it's a weak camera or a glitchy camera and a living person. What do you think? Is there a ghost in this ambulance? This man goes into the building and leaves the ambulance door wide open. And then suddenly, the door closes. Did a ghost close that door? Is there someone in the ambulance that we can't see because of the reflections on the windows? Did a ghost reopen that door? Even when we zoom in, is there someone there and the camera's not picking it up? I feel like there's some sort of optical illusion that is keeping us from seeing that there actually is a person right there. And when we're zoomed in like this, it actually does look like there's a person inside there. But the reflections of the glass is just distorting that person so much that it's very difficult to make them out. But I'm going to stick to there's a living person there opening and closing the doors, and the distortion of the windows reflecting the exterior is just messing with us and causing this optical illusion of there's nobody there. Is this a violent poltergeist? As the camera operator points the camera into this room, we see a mattress leaning up against the wall on the left-hand side, and then suddenly it flies up in the air and then comes back down on the floor. He immediately goes into the room and turns on the lights, but he doesn't see anybody. But then the footage cuts just when he opens up that door. Why did the footage cut? If you have a ghost that is this violent, that is capable of lifting a mattress, 5 feet into the air, then you definitely want to get an exorcism, a cleansing, and get out of the way of this ghost because they're too violent. Now, could this be faked? Yes, it could. I would purposely not show the top of the mattress so you would not see my rigging. I would use a rope and a hook and run it through the rafters in the ceiling. Then I would hide inside this room that the guy did not show us what was in there when he opened up the door. And I'd use all of my strength and maybe need a second person to just violently and suddenly grab the rope and yank and pull until we got lift off. And it didn't matter how it fell, we would just let it fall however it was going to fall. I would also make sure there's nothing in the room that could be broken when that mattress takes off. But I truly believe if you have paranormal activity that has the ability to lift something that large and throw it, you're not grabbing your camera, you're grabbing your ass and running. Is this clown possessed? So the owner sets the clown in this chair and fixes his legs and sits him up there in such a way that he's presentable on camera. And in a second here, he'll put the hat on. So he continues to tweak the clothes and get the doll all gussied up and ready for the camera that is sitting and pointing right at it. Now, typically, dolls or clowns don't creep me out, but when they move in such a way that they're looking directly at me, that is creepy. And the only thing on this clown that we will see is just him raising his head and looking directly into the camera. The movement is very subtle, very slow, and you almost don't even notice it until you realize that it's staring right at you. Now, when the guy set the clown in the chair, we didn't see him do any type of rigging with any type of string to pull that head backwards. And gravity being what it is, the head should have fallen forward even more, not raised up. But now, as you can see, it's slowly looking back down at the ground. And looking back down could be gravity, but that initial looking up like this, yeah, that's not gravity. I'm not sure on this one. I think it might be real, but I can also see how it's possible it could have been staged. But it's just subtle enough and creepy enough for me to think this one might be real. Let me know in the comments section what you think on this one. Please let me know in the comments if my analysis nailed it or failed it. The links for other social media platforms for this channel and for Jim is in the description below. Always be safe. It is free to subscribe. Please subscribe. There are many more videos you can watch, and you can click on the attached playlist card to see some of them. Thanks for watching Paranormal, True or False.